Harrowing secrets of the Cursed Dogman, spine-chilling encounters in Appalachia revealed, the air crackled with a low growl that outmatched the wind's howl. Whispers about the Dogman had escalated, twisting into a frenzy of fear. Shadows lurked like vultures in the dense forest surrounding Pine Hollow. It's just stories, Sarah reassured herself as she wiped down the diner counter, but her heart drummed an anxious rhythm as if it knew more than she did. The flickering neon sign outside mirrored her unease, casting ghostly light on cracked pavement, where once laughter and warmth thrived. The diner felt emptier tonight. The country tunes from the jukebox had turned mournful, each note pulling her deeper into a chilling nostalgia. Patrons had once packed the place, their smiles forever captured in faded photographs, and now only dust bunnies danced in dim corners. Occasionally, Sarah would catch a word, Dogman, whispered like a curse. Everyone knew the tales of that beast lurking in the woods. And the stories were spiraling back into old minds as something sinister began to stretch its claws across the town. Reports of missing residents flickered through the tongues of Pine Hollow's denizens. Every scene became a wave of paranoia. Sheriff Daniels, charismatic and polite, was supposed to put fears to rest, but the glances exchanged behind his welcoming smile told another story. Was he drawn to Dogman lore? Just then, a sense of urgency pulled at her heartstrings. Jake had run out for groceries. Her bright but restless 12-year-old wasn't as cautious as he should be. Racked with worry, she watched him slip out into the night, the woods an insatiable beast of shadows awaiting him. Jake stepped through silence that felt more like dread, crunching gravel beneath his sneakers. He took a moment to breathe as the humid air clung to him like a thick blanket. Muffled whispers clawed at his mind. He had heard the tales, but they now gnawed at him, each rustle or snap burrowing into his spine. The tall trees stood like giants above him, their branches entwined as if eager to consume any wanderer who veered too close. Just then, a sound sliced through the quiet, a sinister rustling behind him. His heart thundered in his chest. Back at the diner, Sarah's phone rang. A frantic voice, heavy with despair, screamed about a sighting and a child missing. Panic exploded in her veins. How many had disappeared? With every news there was only dread thickening the air, suspicion spreading like a contagion. Faces, once familiar, twisted into unknown masks of fear. Who could be trusted when they themselves were haunted? Before long, the door burst open. And there stood Jake, eyes wide, fear etched across his face. "Mom," he gasped, desperately trying to get a word out. But before he could explain, a terrifying growl erupted from the woods, a sound that threatened to snap the fragile veil of calm left in the diner, turning it into a cage of torment. As shadows danced around them, Sarah felt her heart plummet into the abyss of fear. The stories were real. The woods were alive. What kind of terror had they unleashed? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the growl echoed through Pine Hollow like a terrible refrain, a chill washed over her. Something wicked was spiraling closer, and they were caught in its grasp. With shadows creeping like tentacles, Sarah realized she had to shield Jake from the darkness that was now spilling forth from the very tales she had dismissed. The monster they had claimed was a myth was out there, and it wasn't just the woods that were alive. The horror of that truth swept in, leaving them gasping in dread for what lay ahead. The growl deepened, rumbling through the diner's cracked walls as if the very structure held its breath in fear. Sarah's heart raced, each thud echoing in her ears. She pulled Jake closer, feeling his trembling body next to hers. They stood frozen, terror binding their feet to the cold tiled floor. The growl morphed into a snapping bark, a sound unlike anything she'd ever heard, bone-chilling and savage. The lights flickered, casting grotesque shadows that jerked and twisted as though the diner itself was alive, a captive audience to the unfolding horror. Mom, it followed me, Jake whined, his voice barely a whisper, almost lost amid the chaotic symphony of the beast outside. Stay quiet. We have to stay still, Sarah hissed, scanning the dim diner, searching for anything to barricade the door, something to keep the monster at bay. But what could defend them against folklore turned flesh? Rattling metal filled the air as the diner's door rattled like a wind chime caught in a storm. It was a promise of malevolence just outside. Suddenly, the door shook violently, slamming against the wall with a force that sent shivers down her spine. No! She cried, her voice breaking as hope twisted into despair. A figure loomed in the doorway, backlit by the piercing glow of the neon sign. It took a moment for Sarah's eyes to adjust, yet she refused to believe what she saw. It was massive, at least 7 feet tall, with matted fur and elongated limbs that moved with an unnatural grace. Eyes like burning coals locked onto her and Jake, seething with raw hunger. Mom, I saw it in the woods, Jake stammered, tears glistening in his eyes as the horror of what lurked outside began to tear away his childhood innocence. Jake, don't look. Sarah urged, her voice steadying as dread clawed at her throat. She needed to stay calm, needed to think. She grabbed the closest thing, a greasy bar rag, and threw it toward the creature, a futile act against the looming nightmare. The dogman let out a furious snarl, a sound that echoed off the walls and rattled the old plates hanging in the diner. It surged forward, nostrils flaring as it inhaled the scent of terror permeating the air. Before Sarah could react, the beast lunged at the counter, knocking over stools in a thunderous crash. Get down! Sarah shouted, yanking Jake to the floor. Time stretched as the world narrowed to their primal instinct to survive. The growling had turned chaotic, mingling with the sound of crashing glass. The diner's fragile sanctity shattered in that moment, smothered by the creature's rampage. She could feel her breath quickening, suffocating panic clawing at her throat. Was this how it ended? The stories had never prepared her for this terror. Those exaggerated tales were forged from truth, ugly and visceral, suffusing every fiber of the night. Suddenly, an idea sparked in her mind, a hasty plan bubbled up amid the swirling chaos. We have to get to the back. Quickly. She grabbed Jake's hand, stumbling toward the rear door while the dogman wreaked devastation at the diner's front. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Would they escape its grasp, or become another bone tossed into the hunger of the night? She yanked open the creaky door, the stale air hitting them like a cold slap. The darkness outside felt alive, a void that awaited them like a predator poised to strike. As they stepped out into the unknown, the growl faded, followed by an uncanny silence that felt more ominous than the torment behind them. What if it comes outside? Jake whimpered, his voice trembling. Before Sarah could answer, a rustle echoed from the depths of the woods beyond, a promise that the monster was not finished yet. As they rushed into the night, she could feel the beast's sinister gaze boring into her back, a palpable presence that sent chills racing up her spine. They were not safe. Not yet. But Sarah had a chilling realization: if they were to survive, they would have to confront the truth. Nothing was what it seemed in Pine Hollow, and the town held secrets darker than tales of the dogman's secrets that tied their existence to the malevolence creeping closer. And as Sarah glanced back at the diner, now just a silhouette against the undulating moonlight, a painful thought pierced her mind: would they ever undo the terror they had awakened? The woods loomed like a black curtain, every shadow threatening to pull them deeper into the unknown. The air smelled damp and earthy, a smell too rich, almost alive, as if the forest was a predator itself, waiting for flesh. Mom, what do we do now? Jake's voice trembled, breaking the eerie silence that surrounded them. His small hand tightened around hers, fragile but unyielding. Just keep moving, Sarah urged, her own fear bubbling beneath a thin layer of resolve. She took a step forward, her pulse hammering in her ears. Each crackle of twigs underfoot sounded like a gunshot, signaling their presence to whatever lurked in the dark. The trees whispered secrets, rustling leaves and scratching branches seemed to share their tales, conspiratorial and malicious. She couldn't shake the feeling that the dogman was watching, its eyes piercing through the thick darkness between the trunks. Minutes felt like hours as they trudged deeper, punishing their senses with shadows and whispers that made the hairs on her neck stand. She searched for a sign, any sign of a safe place, but the mystery of the woods overwhelmed her. Suddenly, a howl pierced the silence, twisting through the trees like a sinister wind. It was loud, so loud that it echoed off the very fabric of the night, reverberating in the hollow spaces of her chest. "Mom!" Jake gasped, his face pale. "It's close." She yanked him closer, every instinct screaming to flee. But where? There was no escape from the relentless darkness. "Follow me," she whispered, pushing aside the fear clinging to her like mist. They moved away from the sound, but each step felt heavy, as if the earth itself was pulling them back. A flicker of light caught her eye, far off in the distance, faint and inviting against the darkness. Hope surged through her, bittersweet, as she steered them in its direction. "Jake! Do you see that?" "Yes," he exclaimed, his voice rising with a spark of excitement. "Maybe it's a cabin or something. Maybe." A sudden crack of a branch snapped behind them, echoing through the stillness. Sarah whipped around, heart thudding violently. "Mom!" What was that? The howl came again, joined now by the frantic rustling of underbrush. The dogman was not just waiting. It was hunting. "Run!" Sarah shouted, as adrenaline coursed through her veins like wildfire. She urged Jake forward, their little legs pumping faster, fear propelling them into the darkness. Branches clawed at their clothes as they pushed through, the light still flickering tantalizingly in the distance like a mirage. But the sounds grew louder, the snarl of the beast, closer now, mixed with the sounds of their racing hearts and panting breaths. Panic surged through her. What if they didn't reach that light? What if it was just another trick? Just then, a blur shot past them in the shadows. A flash of fur, a glint of teeth. The dogman was only steps away, its growl becoming a sinister whisper in the darkness. "Faster!" Sarah urged, each word laced with desperation. They surged forward, bodies electric with fear, but the light still felt leagues away. The underbrush thickened, pulling at them as they fled, a living thing wanting to keep them from their salvation. And still, the beast's growl echoed in her ears, a menacing reminder that it was hunting them, no longer a distant nightmare, but a reality clawing its way to the surface. As the trees began to thin, their escape seemed near. But the light flickered again, pulsing as if in distress, and suddenly, Sarah caught a glimpse of a shadow moving closer, a silhouette that didn't belong to the woods. Was it hope or yet another trap? Heart racing, she pushed ahead, squinting through the night, but the darkness held its secrets close. And then, before she could process the horrifying truth, she heard a voice, one she recognized, a chilling echo from the past, mingling with the growls. It called out to her, familiar yet filled with dark intentions, and it froze her in place. "Sarah, it's about time you came home." The woods closed in as the laughter rippled through the trees, wrapping around her like a noose. They had stumbled into something far worse than the dogman. What were the woods hiding? And could they escape the chilling truth that awaited them just beyond the light? "Mom, who is that?" Jake's voice quivered, breaking through the echo of laughter that cut into the thick, suffocating atmosphere. The flickering light seemed to pulse in response, a heartbeat lost in despair. Sarah's heart pounded with a mix of terror and confusion, an instinct drowning in panic. "Stay close to me," she whispered, every inch of her being screaming to sprint back into the safety of the trees. But that voice, sickeningly familiar, anchored her feet to the earth. Out of the shadows, the silhouette began to sharpen, revealing a figure clad in shadows, a presence that felt wrong, unnatural. It was a woman she had thought lost forever, her sister, Claire, who had vanished years ago, swallowed by the same woods that now seemed to shift and writhe in anticipation. Claire. The name slipped from her lips, torn between disbelief and dread. "Sarah. You finally found your way back." Claire's smile was wide, but her eyes reflected a darkness that turned Sarah's stomach. The laughter morphed into something garbled, an echo of madness that vibrated through the air. "Jake." Don't! Sarah shouted, realizing in horror that her son had taken a daring step forward, captivated by the transcendent glow emanating from Claire. Before she could reach him, Claire extended a hand, shadows dancing around her fingers. Come to me, Jake. We can be together. Don't you want to meet our family? No. Sarah screamed, adrenaline injecting her with a rush. Stay back, Jake. Amid the darkness, the dogman's growl reverberated, a throaty, bone-chilling sound that overlaid her frantic pleas. Digging her heels into the mossy ground, Sarah sprinted towards Jake, arms outstretched, but in that instant, like a feral heartbeat, the light dimmed, revealing twisted shadows that slipped in from the edges. Creatures emerged, hunched and gangly, eyes glinting like shards of glass. They closed in, corrupted specters bearing semblances of lost souls, her friends, neighbors, each one a grotesque caricature of their former selves. What is happening? Jake cried, backing away, but his feet seemed glued to the earth, bound by fear. The voice of her sister slithered back through the trees, drawing every bit of light into its icy maw. You wanted to find me, Sarah. Well, here I am, here we are. No. Sarah shouted, panicking as every fiber of her being screamed to flee. She wrapped her arms around Jake, feeling his tiny body shake with terror. The dogman's howl tore through the night again, closer now, a predator encroaching on its prey. Mom! We can't let them get us. His innocent eyes reflected her own fear, wide and shimmering. We need to move. She turned, dragging Jake back into the protective arms of the trees, but the ground beneath her felt treacherous, alive, pulsing with the wrath of lost souls. As they stumbled through the thickening woods, branches clawed at them, tearing clothes and skin. The darkness whispered secrets, claws clicking against the ground behind them, each step forcing her to resist the urge to glance back. Mom! The light! Jake shouted through sobs, and once more, the flickering beacon pierced through the darkness ahead. Just a little further, she urged, breathless, but as they drew closer, the truth clawed at her insides, the bitter taste of dread. Would they make it to the light only to find more horror? Suddenly, Claire stepped into their path, blocking the last remnants of escape, her eyes a chaotic swirl of grief and rage. It's too late, Sarah. You can't leave. You belong to the woods now, to us. A howl erupted right behind them, the dogman's breath hot on their backs, suffocating in that moment, Sarah felt the air thicken with fear. The light dimmed once more, swallowed whole by visions of what lay beyond. Jake clutched her tighter, and she faced forward, heart racing. Would they make it out alive, or was the very forest conspiring to keep them entwined in its monstrous grasp? She took a deep breath and stepped into the light, but what awaited them there was yet another nightmare disguised as hope. What would they have to confront if they crossed that threshold? The light enveloped them, a cocoon of trembling brightness that flickered against the encroaching shadows. Heartbeat thundering, Sarah glared ahead, breath hitching as they crossed the threshold. But the moment they entered, the illumination shifted, transforming into a spectral glow that washed over everything, twisting the world into something dire. What is this place? Jake's voice trembled, and his grip tightened on her hand as they stood in a clearing that felt both familiar and alien, surrounded by towering trees, now starkly vibrant under the sickly light. Sarah squinted, trying to stabilize her senses. It looked almost like the clearing they had wandered into years ago before Claire had vanished. But now it pulsated with a malevolence that prickled her skin. Stay close, she urged, her instinct to protect flaring hot. With every breath, the air felt heavier, thickening with a suffocating sense of dread. What if Claire had been right about the woods? Suddenly, a heavy rustling broke the uneasy silence, the sound of something crashing through the underbrush behind them. Instinctively, Sarah turned, half expecting to see Claire or one of the crawling creatures. Her stomach knotted as two glowing eyes emerged from the shroud of trees, watching, waiting. Mom, Jake whimpered. What is it? She struggled to keep her voice steady, feeling the growing presence of unseen eyes all around them, hidden among the trees. Before she could answer, the dogman burst into view. Its fur bristled, matted with filth, sharp teeth bared in a grotesque grin designed to terrify. With each step, its claws dug into the earth, sending up tufts of grass and dirt. "Run!" Sarah shouted, and without hesitating, she pulled Jake toward the far side of the clearing. But panic locked her legs, fear of the pursuing monster seizing her thoughts until vision narrowed. They sprinted, dodging ancient trunks and slipping on slick moss, the world around them blurring. The howl echoed behind them, a ghostly reminder of the danger lurking just out of sight. "Mom! It's getting closer." Jake's cries sliced through her resolve. She pushed harder against the gathering darkness, but the shadows reached out, tightening their grasp. The trees seemed to lean in, life draining from them, pulling her back toward their spreading influence. The clearing warped, twisting into a maze, each route now an uncertain path leading to nowhere. Then, a figure appeared at the clearing's edge. Claire. Her ethereal glow flickered with the deepening darkness as she raised her hand, beckoning them forward. "You don't want to run, Sarah. You don't know what awaits out there." Sarah's heart stuttered, torn between the hope of saving Jake and the terror of the truth behind Claire's smile. "Don't listen to her, Jake." She gripped her son tighter, shaking her head. "We have to go." But the ground treacherously shifted beneath them, morphing into a treacherous landscape that felt like quicksand. Despair gnawed at her, pulling her under. "Why, Sarah?" Claire's voice slithered as if drifting on the wind. "You cannot escape your destiny. You were born for this, to be with your family." Jake's hand slipped from hers, and Sarah lunged after him, but the boy faltered, caught in a trance-like grip. "Mom, I want to see." "Jake, no." Her scream reverberated through the trees, fueled by raw dread. As shadows danced at the periphery, the dogman-esque growl resonated, deepening her terror. In a desperate move, Sarah twisted, yanking Jake from the roots that seemed to grasp him. They barreled forward, racing toward what lay beyond the clearing, where darkness hung heavy, whispering promises that could very well steal their lives. Then, just as hope began to flicker, a voice filled the air, the voice of Jake, now dripping with sickening innocence. "I'll go with Claire, no." The word ripped from Sarah's throat, desperation galvanizing her as she turned to face the encroaching darkness. She couldn't lose him too, not to Claire, not to the woods. The clearing exploded around them, light and shadow mingling, forming a swirling chaos. The dogman snarled, fierce and hungry, and Claire's eyes glowed with a ravenous hunger. Something irrefutable pushed Sarah into action, a feeling that they were running out of time. "Jake!" she shouted, words laden with both terror and relentless determination. As the shadows closed in, the truth loomed ahead. What choice was left? With no guarantee of safety, they found themselves charged toward whatever lay in the depths of the mist, a desperate bid for another chance, or certain doom. What would it take to escape the grasp of the woods, and at what cost? The howls of the dogman echoed in the distance, twisting into a nightmarish symphony of terror. Adrenaline surged through Sarah, amplifying each moment, heightening her senses as she yanked Jake along. The weight of the shadows pressed down, flickering, closing in like a hungry beast. "Stay with me," she gasped, her voice barely audible above the cacophony. The terrain shifted beneath them, roots and vines tangling at their feet, trying to trip them, to pull them back. Every breath tasted of damp earth and dread. They stumbled deeper into the suffocating fog. Visibility shrank, thickening the shadows until they became a living entity, grasping for their very essence. "Mom! Where are we going?" Jake's voice quivered, the innocence lacing his every word, tearing at Sarah's heart. "Anywhere but here," she replied fiercely, not bothering to glance back. Each step felt like a gamble, the fear of the unknown propelling them through the maze of ancient trees. Ahead, the faint glow of Claire's figure flickered, pulling like a lighthouse amidst a storm. Yet, an unsettling chill gripped Sarah. The closer they got, the more she felt the pulse of something lurking, something ancient and evil. "Claire!" Sarah shouted, hoping to reach the sister she once knew. "Help us!" "Sarah, you should come home." Claire's voice flowed, smooth but wrapping around them like a vice. Things are much better here. Don't be afraid. Fear surged through Sarah's veins, igniting an instinctive resistance. No, Jake. We can't trust her. Keep moving. But Jake's eyes shimmered in the dark, caught between the warmth of familiarity and the cold bite of fear. But I can see her. I can see everything. With horror, Sarah watched her son's face melt into confusion and doubt. The woods twisted around them, an infinite labyrinth where rights turned to lefts, where shadows danced enticingly, promising safety, family, love. Jake! Listen to me. Panic clawed at Sarah as she felt the sensation of being watched grow stronger, an audience of unseen eyes thrilled by their turmoil. Claire SNT, what you think? Suddenly, the rustling returned, louder this time. Closer. The crisp sound of claws against bark, wind howling with a tortured cry. She felt it before she saw it. A rush of rancid breath against her neck sent ice through her core. Without warning, a mass burst from the shadows. The dogman lunged at them, teeth gleaming in the spectral light, its grotesque face a terrible mask of hunger. With a feral growl, it seemed to taste the air, searching for them, driven by primal instinct. Run! Sarah's voice cracked as she swept Jake into her arms. They stumbled through the fog, heart racing, lungs burning. The branches clawed at them, striking against skin as she ran, leaving marks that would sting long after. The howl of the dogman thundered, feral and bloodthirsty, echoing a promise of doom. Mom! Jake cried, his small arms wrapping tightly around her neck, trembling. As fear raced forward, the darkness swirled around and behind them, a choking fog that whispered terrible secrets and lost promises. Sarah pushed forward, each desperate step a frantic prayer to reach the other side of this hell. But in a heartbeat, the world around them shattered. The ground split, fissures opening wide, sucking them toward oblivion. Sarah fought against it, digging her heels into the soil. Hang on, Jake! She screamed, her voice barely a whisper beneath the roar of darkness. With all the strength she could muster, she surged forward. Just as the shadows seemed ready to swallow them whole, she spotted a sliver of light ahead, a narrow path out. The faintest glimmer promised safety, but doubt clawed at her, a cost she wasn't sure she was willing to pay. Everything around them twisted, pulling them back into its nightmarish embrace. The dogman howled, the crescendo of its fury rising behind them, urging them to turn and face it. Don't look back. She commanded. The glow beckoned, each step toward it felt like a decision that could shatter their already frayed bond. Could they reach it, or would they be devoured by the darkness? With the howls chasing them, Sarah held on to the last threads of hope, pushing forward to whatever lay beyond the illuminated path, or to their final resting place within the cursed woods. What awaited them in that fragile sliver of light? Would it bring redemption, or a fate worse than death? The path was narrow, barely wide enough for them to fit side by side. Yet, it glimmered with a beckoning light, pulling them in with the promise of safety that felt like a double-edged sword. The sound of the dogman was a gnashing thunder behind them, each howl dripped with its insatiable fury. Every instinct screamed for Sarah to keep moving, yet some foreboding instinct held her back. Closer, Mom! Jake urged, his voice trembling, but not just from fear. Something was changing in him, a glimmer of something dark beneath his innocence. Sarah felt the atmosphere thicken, as if the very air around them was alive and suffocating. She stumbled after Jacob, her feet pounding against the earth, trying to drown out the whispers that sprang from the shadows. They weren't just random incoherent murmurs, they were voices entwined with familiarity, echoing twisted memories that clawed at her already frayed edges of sanity. Come to us, stay, be with us, the voices beckoned in a chilling harmony. Sarah's heart raced faster than her legs could carry her, coupled with the heavy weight of each echo. But the glow ahead dimmed, flickering like a candle fighting against a storm. The woods around her twisted and loosened from reality, colors bleeding into one another in a surreal fashion. The enticing sounds from behind pulled at Jake, his feet dragging against the forest floor as he slowed. Mom, I think I want to stay, he murmured, almost entranced. No. Sarah's scream shattered the heavy air. Jake, we have to keep going. Do you want to end up like she couldn't finish her thought, but the image flared up in her mind, the faded, grinning faces of those lost in the darkness, people Claire once knew, now twisted shadows of their former selves. Jake's expression turned, a flicker of rebellion flashing in his eyes. But Sarah, she misses us. A dark fear shoved its way into her gut. No. This isn't your Aunt Claire, this is not the family we knew. The desperation in her voice deepened. She lunged forward, gripping Jake's hand tighter, forcing him into motion. The glow pulsed rhythmically, as if it were alive and breathing, but it also shifted beneath their feet. Each step further was a battle against the pull of their past, against the twisted love Claire now represented. The dogman's howl crescendoed to a terrifying peak, and it felt like the very ground beneath them trembled with its rage. The air thickened, savory with the scent of decay, as the creature moved closer, its footsteps reverberating through their bones. Each footfall brought with it a sense of inevitable doom. Then, from the depths of the fog, two glowing eyes emerged, eyes too familiar. You should come back, Sarah, Claire's voice drifted, sweet and sickening. Come home and you can have everything you've wanted. Everything can be fixed. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat, a web drawing tighter around her as Claire's appearance deepened from the mist. Gone were the shadows of doubt and darkness surrounding her sister. Claire stood illuminated, her arms stretched wide, welcoming them back into her unholy embrace. No, Jake. We have to get away from her. Sarah barked, her heart thudding loudly enough to drown out every other sound, but the tug-of-war played on Jake's face was all-consuming. The light pulsed violently, a heartbeat in the depths of despair. With a powerful grip, she tugged Jake to push through, knowing they were being tested, swaying dangerously between the light and her sister's sinister smile. The crack of branches echoed as the dogman surged once more, teeth bared, eyes like burning coals. Go. Now. Sarah sprinted towards the light, but it flickered like a dying star, and the darkness around them roared with unbridled hunger. Just as they reached the edge of the glow, the ground beneath cracked, an expansive void curling toward them. Mom! I can't. Jake's voice rose in sheer terror, a pitch that sliced through her heart. With a final surge, Sarah leapt forward, pulling Jake along, but the consequences were palpable. The dark tendrils closed in, wrapping around her legs, thrusting them into the chasm below. She was losing him. Desperation clawed at her throat as she held on, pulling back, fighting against the abyss that aimed to swallow them whole. But what if they didn't escape this time? What cost would they pay for stepping into the light, and would they even want to return if Claire's world promised everything they had lost? As darkness surged and shadows stretched, the oppressive weight of silence loomed. What awaited them on the other side? Were they truly escaping, or merely trading one nightmare for another? The ground beneath Sarah began to crumble, sending tendrils of darkness writhing around her ankles and pulling her downward. Clutching Jake's hand, she fought to hold on to him, the sheer terror in his wide eyes sending shocks of adrenaline coursing through her body. Jake, look at me. Her voice broke through the chaos, her grip tightening as she pulled with all her strength. We can't stay. Don't let her win. He struggled, confusion flickering like a candle in the wind, but she felt a spark of recognition flicker in his expression. The dogman's howls echoed like a funeral dirge, a symphony of destruction, and Sarah's heart raced. She knew they had to escape the influence of Claire's sweet voice or risk losing everything. From the depths of the abyss, shadows writhed and twisted, trying to draw them in. The very fabric of the world seemed to fray, colors swirling and blending. Faces appeared for brief moments in the shadows, their hollow eyes pleading, mocking, hollering for salvation. Sarah forced herself to look away, focusing on the flickering light ahead that was still cradling twisted promises. Just a little further. She shouted, her voice swallowed by the void around them. Each breath she took felt heavier, filled with the scent of decay, urging her toward despair. Mom! I can't hold on. Jake screamed, a panic-infused plea that rang like a bell of doom in her ears. No. You have to. Sarah pulled harder. The darkness clawed at her, sending icy tendrils up her legs. It felt alive, hungry like it knew her weakness. With one desperate surge, she twisted, falling backward to pull Jake up with her. Suddenly, she felt a sharp yank, and she was thrown backward, the darkness breaking his grip momentarily. Run, Jake. Just run. I'll follow. In the flurry of chaos, Jake turned and sprinted toward the pulsating light. Sarah struggled against the darkness wrapping tighter around her, like a serpent coiling for the kill. She could hear the pounding footsteps of the dogman, the sound crescendoing in a tidal wave of dread. Jake! She called, but the shadows slithered into her mouth with every shout, threatening to consume her voice. The true weight of her surroundings crashed down on her. She was afraid they were too late. Suddenly, an earth-shattering howl erupted, freezing her in place. The dogman was upon them, a monstrous sight from the pages of a nightmare, its yellow eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Sarah felt her blood run cold, her heart hammering against her chest like a caged beast desperate for freedom. The creature's maw opened wide, its breath hot and fetid, and she could feel its hunger reaching out. Run! Sarah shrieked, squeezing her eyes shut to imagine the light surrounding her, the warmth of safety. Moments stretched like an eternity. When she opened them again, she was standing at the edge of a cliff, Jake staring up at her from below, his small frame trembling, the light just beyond his reach. Then, Claire's voice whispered sweetly in her ear. You can have it all, Sarah, if you just let go. Sarah felt the darkness pull at her once more. It was an unbearable weight, tempting her with memories of laughter, love, and family, everything she had thought lost forever. What if Claire's world really could give them everything? Mom! Jake shouted, desperation surging in his voice. Don't listen. Torn between the two worlds, Sarah's chest ached with indecision. Would she sacrifice her son to remain in the comfort of what once was? Could she sacrifice her past for the hope of a future? Jake, breath hitching, she hesitated, caught in a morass of horror and hope. The abyss beckoned fiercely. The creature surged forward, teeth bared, a growl that echoed with centuries of dread. Then she noticed the trail behind Jake. The path formed from shadows, leading deeper into the woods as if pleading for her to come closer. There was a way, perhaps their salvation. With both joy and dread swirling in her heart, Sarah took a step backward, leaving behind the lingering whispers of Claire. The light dimmed as the dogman lunged, and she knew she had to make a choice, but the moment dragged, hovering like a suspended heartbeat. Should they venture deeper into the cursed woods, or would the darkness consume them? As the final shadows stretched toward her, a chilling thought gripped her. If they entered the depths, would they find freedom or merely more horrors waiting in the dark? With the howl of the dogman thundering in her ears and the edge of the cliff at her back, Sarah had to decide quickly. What awaited them in the suffocating veil of shadows ahead? Their future hung by a thread, twisting violently in a dance of life and death. Sarah's pulse raced as she felt the abyssal pull of shadows reaching up, clawing at her soul. Frantically, she glanced back at Jake. His small body trembled under the weight of fear as he stood at the cliff's edge, eyes wide and pleading. The dogman's growl rumbled through the air, a sound that promised death and damnation. The ground beneath her feet cracked further, splintering like ice underfoot. Jake, please, she cried, her voice tearing through the chaos. Take a step back. We have to go. Jake's eyes darted left and right, as if searching for an escape outside of the darkness swallowing them whole. His small frame was alone, a beacon against the encroaching blackness. But Sarah could feel the warmth of Claire's voice wrap around her, tempting her with dreams of an idyllic life, of joy and laughter that felt so tantalizingly within reach. In that moment, it felt as if the world itself held its breath. Thick silence hung heavy, suppressing the howls of the dogman, pressing against her ears like a vice. Should they flee deeper into the woods, confronting whatever lurked within? Or should they step back, risking everything on this edge? Suddenly, Claire's voice turned sharp, cutting through the seductive whispers. "Sarah, trust me," she hissed, her cadence slithering with venom. "You can have it all. Just let go." A tremor ran down Sarah's spine. She felt as though the ground beneath her was a mere illusion, an ethereal construct keeping her just out of Claire's grasp. In the distance, shadows twisted and coiled like smoke, almost forming recognizable shapes, faces frozen in expressions of terror. They were lost souls, claiming their place in the darkness. "Mom! Please!" Jake's shrill cries snapped her from the depths of despair. He took a reluctant step back, clinging to the rocks as if they could save him. "You're scaring me." A wave of dread cascaded over her. The dogman charged forward, its breath hot with the stench of decay, teeth glinting like knives under a dying sun. She couldn't lose her son. Not like this. But could she really leave everything behind? With her heart thrumming in her chest, Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to focus. "Jake, I'm coming. Just keep running." In the shadows, something shifted. A silhouette shifted into focus, a child, lost and weeping, just beyond the party of shadows. This was a vision straight from her nightmares, a reflection of what could be her future if she faltered. Her hands shook. "We can do this together." Clutching Jake's hand, she stepped away from the cliff, down the unmarked path of twisted trees and roots that reached up like fingers grasping for their souls. The air screamed with the heat of fear, urging them to second-guess themselves at every turn. But as they plunged deeper, the cold enveloped them like a shroud. The mixing sense of earth and decay heightened her paranoia. Every whisper rustled between the leaves, every shadow skittering across the ground felt like an omen. Sarah wrestled with the feeling that they were not simply being pursued, they were being hunted. Somewhere in the darkness, a laugh echoed, high and mirthful, mocking their dread. Tension built to a breaking point, twisting Sarah's stomach into knots. But she couldn't turn back now. She pushed on against the grip of despair, until suddenly, the laughter stilled. In its place, a voice, low and guttural, rumbled through the trees. "You think you can escape? You're already mine just like the others." The words breathed life into her common fears. A shudder coursed through Sarah as horror warred with hope. "What does it want?" Jake murmured, his innocent voice laced with raw terror. "What if it's right?" She breathed, trembling. "What if we never get out?" But before she could answer, the shadows surged. The dogman, swift and relentless, stalked them through the trees, rage pulsing in its eyes. Sarah could sense that they were running out of time. Their fate was racing to meet them, and the chilling truth settled in, something darker was waiting for them just ahead. "Jake!" she shouted, her voice cracking, "Run faster." With terror biting at their heels, the darkness seemed to shift and spin, closing in on them like a trap. They barreled forward, heartbeats synchronizing in a frantic rhythm with Jake's small breaths hitching in panic. What lay in the depths of that foreboding blackness? And just as they rounded a thick trunk, the ground beneath them gave way to an abyss, a swirling maw of despair that loomed ready to swallow them both whole. Would they stumble into salvation or damnation? The abyss loomed beneath them like an insatiable beast, threatening to swallow them whole. Sarah's instincts screamed for her to find solid ground, but her feet faltered, the chilling echoes of lost souls whirling in the shadows. "Hold on, Jake. We can't let it take us." The darkness pulsated, eager to claim them. With a desperate lunge, Sarah grasped Jake's hand tighter, her heart racing with fear. They had to break free from this nightmarish realm, this place of twisted memories and monstrous promises. "Mom! I can't." Jake's voice trembled as he stumbled, the shadows clawing at his little frame. Time was slipping away, and so were they. "No. You will not take him." The defiance surged through Sarah, igniting every ounce of strength within her. She yanked Jake close, positioning herself between him and the swirling darkness. Each breath felt like a struggle against despair, a fight for the light she hoped still existed. Ahead, the pulsing glow flickered like a heartbeat, a beacon guiding them through the twisted mass. "That way, Jake. Follow me." Her voice rang fierce, wrapping around them like an iron chain as they rushed towards the light, their hearts pounding like distant war drums echoing through the chaos. But from behind, the Dogman-esque growl crescendoed, primal and raw, reminiscent of something ancient. The very sound reverberated through the earth, agitating the shadows, blurring the edges of reality. It was closing in, but they couldn't look back. The light beckoned, promising safety, redemption, a chance to escape this living nightmare. As they charged, the ground shifted beneath them, changing with each desperate step. "Mom! I don't want to go back," Jake cried out, the very life in his little voice fading under the weight of dread. "Neither do I. But we have to trust each other." She felt desperation clawing at her heart, each word delivered with urgency. It was vital they didn't waver, didn't succumb to the fear that lurked around every corner of this malevolent forest. The Dogman howled again, and Sarah felt it like ice slicing through her veins. "Keep running," she yelled. "Just a little further." She felt a heavy darkness creeping over them with each stride, a desperate need to survive pushing her forward. But could they outrun the beast, or were they merely delaying the inevitable? Time slowed, every heartbeat echoed in her ears as they stumbled through the brush, branches tearing at clothes like the claws of the damned. The suffocating air felt alive, choking her breath as they pushed toward their destination. The singing branch arms of the trees twisted, reaching for them like a choir of lost souls desperately beckoning them home. Suddenly, they burst through the final thicket, and as the world opened up, they found themselves at the edge of a steep cliff. The ground dropped sharply beneath them, and the light ahead flickered furiously, as if ready to extinguish itself. "Mom! We can't go down there. It's too far." Jake's voice was on the brink of hysteria as he clung desperately to her. "We won. Look." Sarah pointed to a root-laden path that wound tightly down the cliffside. It was treacherous and dark, but it led toward the glow that now pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and inviting. With resolute determination, she gripped Jake's hand tighter. "We're going down together." She took the first step, feeling the dirt beneath her shoes give way slightly. It was their chance, and they couldn't hesitate now. The descent was perilous, each shaky moment a reminder of how close the shadows came. Behind them, the Dogman's wrath roared, more furious than before, but they were committed. Every frantic heartbeat reverberated through their bodies, a tether of life against the encroaching dark. "Stay on my heels, Jake," Sarah urged, adrenaline coursing through her. They staggered down, the roots gripping them like fingers striving to pull them back, while the growls drew near, a constant menace in the mass of obscurity. "Mom! It's coming!" Jake cried, terror spilling into his voice. "It won't get you. Just keep moving," she shouted, not looking back. She felt the presence behind them, heavy and predatory, hot breath tracing the nape of her neck, but they couldn't falter. Finally, breathless and shaking, they hit solid ground at the bottom. The glow before them surged, illuminating a clearing surrounded by tangled vines and shadows. It beckoned them, urging them to step into its warmth. "We made it, Jake. Just a little closer." She urged him forward as they crossed the threshold, releasing their desperate hold on the nightmare behind them. For a moment, everything stilled. The sound of the Dogman's growl faded, swallowed by the brightness engulfing them. The glow formed a kind of barrier, wrapping them in shimmering light, momentarily shielding them from the darkness that had haunted their steps. But a low growl lingered just outside the light's edge, a reminder of the dangers they had narrowly escaped. "Mom, what if it tries to get us again?" Jake's apprehension echoed, his small voice edged in fear. "Then we'll fight," Sarah replied fiercely, determination hardening every syllable. "Together." But the light wasn't just an escape, it was a crucible. Visions flickered before them, mirroring the past, the warmth of family gatherings, laughter shared, but darker figures lingered at the edge, faces worn with sorrow and twisted by loss. Yes, together, she whispered, grief lacing her heart. This experience would change them forever, but they had each other. The dogman was still there, lurking, waiting. But within that flickering light, perhaps there was hope. As shadows danced away from them, finally separate, Sarah pulled Jake close and said, "We have to remember who we are." Together, they stepped further into the light, leaving behind the cursed woods, the darkness that yearned for them now fading into memory. Those scars would remain, they would face whatever came next together, bonded in a way they'd never been before. In the deep of night, as silence fell over the realm of haunted trees, something broke. The echoes of the dogman faded into mere myths once more, leaving only the sound of a mother and son finding solace, together at last, beneath a sky of stars. And as they embraced what lay ahead, one thought lingered: sometimes, the greatest battle was not against the nightmares, but for the light. That if this conclusion left you breathless and eager for more, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help spread the word. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories, because I want to hear from every single one of you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this thrilling conclusion. Let us keep the adventure alive together.